All right. This is Colin Digits. I'm live in the Digitsclub. I'm here today with the Firestarter team, going to have an interesting conversation because we have a lot of questions and I hope you have a lot of answers. Thank you for being here. Are you ready
Thank you for having us
to be grilled?
Absolutely, right? Yeah,
Awesome.
please.
Awesome.
I feel like one of our projects that we talk to every day.
I actually did just covered Elumia just now, just before.
I saw that. We are
so
actually
that went really well.
Right in the middle of that launch. We did the raise last week, and it's been great. That team is so awesome, and what they're working on is like really incredible. I think it's really
happy
cool game.
How it went, the launch?
Yeah, I mean, in this market, anything right now seems to be nice.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely not our all-time high. We've had projects that reach, 50x, 40x. I think we even had a 60x at one point with decimated. But yeah, we're just happy to see some green. So it's a good project. It's a long-term project, long-term play. But everything they're doing is right in line with what we want to see in a project. Whether that's the team that we look at heavily, or their tokenomics, they're in the right place to succeed. So we're stoked on that.
To tie in on that, when you say when we review projects, let's start with your review process, right? Because we do see basically a pipeline. On Firestarter, there's always a pipeline, right? When you go on the website, there's always some projects listed. Might not have the actual date yet, but you at least have a full flowing pipeline. How does that work in terms of how you scout projects, perhaps differently than other launchpads?
Yeah, actually, that's, I think, one of the main differentiating factors between us and other launchpads is we go really deep with our projects. So every project you see that's on our website or that we've tweeted about, we've provided, like, we've done one-on-ones with them. We've communicated, we've done workshops. All of that kind of stuff doesn't necessarily come with other launchpads. A lot of these other launchpads, their process is simply fill out a due diligence form. We'll take a look at your project, and if the numbers match up, then we will launch you. Here, our due diligence process is much more intensive. Usually it comes like 3 or 4 person video meetings. And then we do a complete cap table review, a complete tokenomics review, all of that stuff that we feel needs to be in place that other launchpads aren't necessarily paying attention to. We can help with that. So yeah, it's a pretty intense due diligence process, and it's kind of the reason why we don't have as many projects as other launchpads. You see a lot of other launchpads, 10, 15 projects a month, and I mean, what are the chances that all of those are going to be successful? So what we do
is it more like a risk exposure kind of thing? Because it sounds like it's not really an incubation, right? But it's kind of leaning that way. You're giving them full support on every level.
It's a full incubation, yeah. So what we do is, and that's really different than a lot of these other launch pads where it's, like I said, it's they do a little bit of due diligence, it's a form fill, and that's it. And it's not really.
Why would you choose that route specifically? Does it make more money or?
Sometimes they can give the optics of it being a bigger company. Firestarter is only less than a year old. A lot of people want these legacy launch pads that have a good track record. But when you actually do a lot of this digging into some of these launch pads, you realize a lot of it is just optics. And here at Firestarter, we are genuine. We don't, no pay for play necessarily in our Discords and stuff and Twitters. It's very genuine and organic growth that we're going after. And that's something we relate to all of our projects as well. As the space is so filled with phonies, so filled with, like rug pulls and everything. And the more transparent and upfront you can be about everything you're working on, about your tokenomics, about the team, the better you're going to be off.
Makes sense.
So yeah.
Why is it specifically? Maybe that's an interesting point of view, because that's my own experience, right? I will talk some shit later, which I hope you can help me with. But when we look at for example, the projects, there's a lot of Solana. Is there a specific reason why you go that route? Or is it because you guys have a good integration there with like a network?
Yeah, so we are super bullish on Solana. We have quite a few resources on our team that is being dedicated to building out that side of our platform. We're actually getting ready to bridge our own Flame token over to Solana and allow those communities to participate in the Firestarter platform a bit easier. We saw that there's some roadblocks when it comes to Solana and MetaMask, for example. We can't necessarily send out free NFTs from cool giveaways and stuff we're doing to people that aren't set up in the Solana ecosystem. So this next year and this next quarter, we've really built a lot of cool stuff on our platform that we're getting ready to launch. That includes new tiering and new staking options. But all of that will include the Solana integration. So we're really firing up on all cylinders of Solana, whether that's projects, NFT projects or token projects rather. And we actually have 2 of our business dev guys out at Solana Bahamas. So there's a big Solana conference going on right now. Eddie just gave a panelist speech. Solana Steve's out there as well. So we're pretty heavily invested in that ecosystem, and we feel that everything they're doing is kind of tracking along in what we would like to see our platform include.
Is it like a lower barrier of entry as well, if you would go for Solana, or maybe less competitive, that you specifically make that choice? Because you could probably name like 3 more decent blockchains, but doesn't necessarily mean you want to bridge your company there.
No, exactly. So we were actually looking at other blockchains like Arbitrum when we were first launching. And it's kind of where you want to go, where you see a lot of the hype and momentum moving, right? You want to be in front of that wave, of course, as we all do. You want to be in front of that wave, and we feel that the wave's just beginning on Solana. And that's not to say that we're not going to bridge to even other blockchains or L1s, but we think that right now the timing's right, especially with what we're kind of building as a platform with these mixtures of NFTs and tokens. We feel that a few of those projects, without saying too much, when they do release their tokens, it's going to be really successful, and they have really hype communities. So yeah.
Interesting. Let's pick up the what's it called, the tiers, right?
Yeah,
that was my favorite part to review. The multiple times I talked about Firestarter. That's the part where I talked my shit, right, on the current tiers.
Yeah.
I think my entire audience knows what I think of those tiers, but it's like a structure. It's like a hybrid structure, right? There's some lottery, there's some guaranteed allocation. There is some NFTs, the hero NFTs come into play for guaranteed allocation, but it is a little bit overly difficult, right, in terms of how things move. Why would you choose to change it, apart from, because I assume when you launched, what changed basically when you set your tiers? Because we often see like CDeFi change their tiers, right?
Oh yeah, it's common.
It was a big change. Common. So why would you change your tiers, and what changed during that vision period?
Yeah, I think the market, for one. We initially launched in the Super Bowl market. At our launch, we 50x, I think actually closer to 60. But during that time, the market changed. And so now the people that had bought our token at the top were now basically getting the same sort of benefits as people that had bought it at the bottom when it came to how many tokens you needed. So to better reflect sort of where our token price is now and the current direction, we have kind of simplified and updated those tiers so that it reflects the current token price and the value of our investments. One thing about Firestarter is we give the biggest allocations, I think, out of any launchpad in the market. It was funny, we had, I think it was Decimated, we co-launched them with another, I forget which launchpad, but their allocations were like $17. And so when you're getting 10% of that at, every month, it's a super insignificant amount of allocation.
Right, it's neglectable for any investor, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And so to reflect the value and our high allocations, we've sort of jumbled up the tiers a bit to better reflect
and what would be high? Because I think for everybody that's different. Could you give us like a ballpark range?
In terms of like the amount of tokens needed to lock, in terms of...
Well, in terms of allocations on the new
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So let's say the highest tier or...
Yeah, so I think the last project, our base tier was $80. And as you know from our tiers, the higher you go up, the more of a multiplier you get. So I think at one point people were able to invest up to $800 in a project like Decimated, which is a huge project. That's pretty significant value that you're getting. And because of that, we've had to update our tiers and kind of reflect that value as well. Another thing that we did is, which was very experimental, was our hero play, right? An NFT that gives you actual guaranteed allocation in a project, which was something at the time I don't think had been executed on before. And we literally released these NFTs for free. So we gave out 10,000 free NFTs. I think 200 of them were transformed into this hero character, and those 200 could then get guaranteed allocation. Those 10,000 flares were free, and then we saw the value of them build up over time in correlation to the value of our projects and value of the Launchpad and project. So I think at one time they went from, like I said, 0 up to I think 5 ETH, 80, something like that. Which is amazing. It just goes to show that like you can actually build value into these things.
Definitely, it's definitely a unique structure, right?
Yeah,
and for the big guys, it's like an additional benefit, I would say, because not everybody can afford that.
No, absolutely not. But it does provide an interesting use case in this sort of Web3 frontier that we're adventuring on. And I think that's something that just consistently needs to be pushed forward, is the innovation side of all of it. And with that being said, there are new tier updates that come with that innovation.
What do you think about the balance, though? Because we see a lot of launchpads where there's a continuous dilemma between token devaluation, right? So in a bull market, everybody's throwing money at every IDO.
You can't lose. You can't lose.
Yeah. It's very likely, unless it's a rug, it's very likely that you're going to do well. But the problem that we tend to see is that you will have, perhaps right now would probably be one of the best periods to buy Launchpad tokens, in my opinion, right? Because taking like a 6 to 8x, most of the highest tiers, they become non-affordable. We're talking 50, 100,000, 150,000, depending on the tier of the Launchpad. Crazy. Right. But what I see with the launchpads themselves is obviously token devaluation, right? Which you mentioned. So the restructuring there. But for the holders specifically, how do you balance the small guys against the big guys? Because if I would be you, I would basically say, okay, the big guys is what basically secures our liquidity, right? Because they won't move that quickly. It's like large sums of money. So you want to reward them, right, with high allocations, because that's what they want. But then the small guys, they are your hype crew, your marketing guys, right? They will spread the word. They will do all the giveaways. I don't see any big guys on Gleams, right? They don't care about airdrops and stuff. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because the ones that end up investing the least amount are the ones that are always the loudest. So we have guys and we check their wallet, they hold 4 flame, and it's like them causing they're flooding everywhere. It's like, so at the end of the day, you have to kind of, like you mentioned, balance that out and figure out how can we make these people happy while not, making these people unhappy. And that's something that happens when you upgrade your tiers, is there's always going to be people that are mad. Right. But at the end of the day, you have to really realize who is going to be there for the long term. And we feel that the people that invested the most with us, those higher tier members, are here for the long term. And that's kind of where our mission is as well. And that's where it aligns with those customer groups. These people at the lower end of the tier are very much more experimental, very much kind of just dabbling in this, and honestly aren't as savvy as higher tier investors. And that's something that's really important, especially in the Launchpad space, is having savvy investors. It's a very complicated game, and you can't come in here playing like it's an NFT flip, or if it's a simple buy-sell order off of an exchange. There's a lot of things that go into it, and a lot of details that people don't even realize are part of it, such as vesting contracts and where do I lock my flame and all this kind of stuff. And the savvier the investor, obviously the easier job it is for us, but we feel that the more value they bring us. So our current marketing efforts, our current platform, we're really going after more savvy investors, as opposed to, like you mentioned, these Gleam runner guys, which is great for the community. But at the end of the day, we don't feel like it's a huge amount of value that they're bringing at the to our projects.
Yeah,
and we want people that are aligned for the long term, whether that's our investors in the Flame community or the KOLs we work with. Everybody should be looking at this as like a, you know, a couple-year project, as opposed to like what you see, these pump and dumps and quick turnaround and flips.
Yeah, we've all seen them.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
yeah.
like that's basically why we keep asking these questions, why we're so heavy on the quality of these things. We get a lot of launchpads that want to jump on an AMA, which is cool. They don't want to show their face, or they don't want to do voice, and like face is like the minimum for us.
It's the best.
If we're going to ask serious questions and you're a serious company, like why not do that? And I think, yeah, that's great that you do today.
That's something I actually, every single project we work with, I tell them to do that. And it's funny to see how resistant they are to putting their face and name out there sometimes. But it's like, this will go far for you in building a community. And it's because so few people do it. And like I said, it's all about that.
I mean, like, it's fine if you want to be anonymous in the crypto space, right? The whole Web3 thing, I get it. But then if you're looking to launch a token and raise $20 million, then you have some kind of obligation towards your audience, because people need to give you that money, and that's fine. If you want to do like a 500K project, right, then it's fine. You don't have to dox yourself because nobody cares. Just you can get the money from some randoms, right? When we talk about, let's say, races, right? What would you? So I, as far as I'm aware, you only raise public. Is that right?
We do. So yeah, community does a public round, and then we internally have a whole KOL network that we help fill strategic rounds, private rounds. It really depends on where the project is. We get them at so many different stages of their funding or of their product that we can kind of add funds where needed. So Firestarter itself, we invest in the company. Every company we launch, we've invested in. And then, of course, we run the public rounds for our community and Flame token holders.
Would there be a opportunity where you would bring private as well to the community on the pad, or is that not something you're considering for now?
No, absolutely. We work with a ton of, I guess that would be something that would come in on the strategic round, and our strategic rounds are very focused on value provided. So absolutely, there's some room for, depending on the project, of course. A lot of these projects are 10x oversubscribed, and it's hard to just get our team allocation on stuff like this. Right. But yeah, where there's room for sure.
Fair. Mm-hmm. So the pools make sense. The tiers, they will be updated. Any timeline on those tiers?
Actually, next week. We're just finishing up.
For real, or hopefully?
Yeah, for real. We finished up the Solana integration, which is nice. That kind of took a while, but now that that's done, we're ready to go.
Perhaps a more strategic question. I see a lot of launch pads that connect with bigger pads. So one of our other partners, Unix, right, their final round launchpad, they just signed DAOmaker as a launch partner. Well, DAOmaker obviously being the biggest one on market cap, that's huge. But we also see that there's more deal flow normally in the back end, right? On the channels, the launch pads, they're not competitors, they share all the deal flow together. Yet now on the front end, towards the audience, they're also saying like, hey, we're partnering up. Why do you think that is? And is that something you are looking to explore with Firestarter?
Yeah, we actually partnered with DAOmaker last month on a launch with Chainport, which was a project that they kind of headed up. But I think it's great. You know, I think a lot of these bigger launch pads, they're getting a little scared from the smaller guys because they realize that these communities that are all around the world are pretty powerful regardless of their numbers. And I think you're going to see a switch soon from DAOmaker and Polkastarter being these sort of bigger players to more of these smaller, not necessarily pool groups, but communities that can actually have a niche focus on stuff that they like, and a niche focus on sort of the projects they want to invest in. And for Firestarter, our niche focus is Metaverse, obviously. So we actually have a lot of deal flow from other launch pads that, and we give deal flow to them as well, that revolve around that Metaverse niche.
What would you specify as metaverse? Because obviously metaverse is like the biggest marketing term right now. It's just being thrown around. I just reviewed a shit game yesterday and they call themselves a metaverse game. I'm like, this is not even worth to be called a game, right? It's just
like solitaire or something.
Yeah, it's like some mobile application bullshit. But when you speak about metaverse, I know you got some stuff with blocks cooking up. I would divide that as like a metaverse opportunity, but Decimated is just a shooting game.
Yeah, so I mean, when you look at the term metaverse, you don't have to think of it as like an actual environment. I actually think of the metaverse as like an internet you're a part of, you're interacting with, and it surrounds you. So like Decimated, it's an open world sort of, I guess you'd call it landscape metaverse, but all of the blockchain functionalities and aspects of it, NFTs including, are help building this online digital presence that a community can partake in. And so when I talk about a metaverse, I talk about more in terms of where can a community go and be together online, digitally.
So if I would play World of Warcraft with the Flame Gang, then we're inside the metaverse.
Yeah, we're in our own little ecosystem, our own little metaverse. I even consider sometimes being in these Zoom calls our own little metaverse. You know, we're talking, we're interacting online, and I don't think we're there. I think we're at like 1.5 of this metaverse idea where we're seeing us transition into this fully digital ecosystem and environment. We're not there yet, as you can see. I think if we were in a metaverse, you and I would be running around in the sky or something.
Yeah, probably, because I think I think the whole, even just you and me, but probably the entire audience, we all have a different understanding of metaverse. Would you want to pick metaverse as your keyword then? Because if you explain metaverse, I would say that's GameFi, right? It's like
well, it's on GameFi, it's NFTs, it's we even have some financially sort of interesting metaverse plays as well, where it's this whole ecosystem that exists within this environment, and it's actually financially driven. Yeah, I would say GameFi makes up most of this metaverse term at the moment, but I think all of that stuff is going to be completely entangled with everything we're doing.
Yeah,
For example,
sure. So
Whitley, we just...
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Whitley, we just launched. I would consider that a metaverse company. It's Zillow for digital real estate. So that kind of company is something that is adding to this idea of the metaverse and pushing it forward. And it's something that fits right in line with the sort of projects we're after.
Right, makes sense. We have an interesting question. I'll pick that up in a second from Andrew. In terms of, so when you speak metaverse and I say GameFi, if I would explain Firestarter to somebody who's asking like, hey, what's the Launchpad about? You would ideally want me to say, in that case, crypto gaming, to keep it simple. Does that make sense?
Well, I think crypto gaming pushes, because we don't only do crypto gaming. We do, like I mentioned, we're doing this Whitley, which is a digital real estate metaverse company. So there's all these solutions that people are looking for. Metaverse comes with its own problems. We're looking for companies that can help solve these solutions. Another one that we're working on is a video conferencing company that wants to have video conferences in the metaverse, because they've noticed that this interaction on these platforms currently in the current metaverses are kind of slow and not as personable. So that's another solution we're working on. All these are sort of...
So you want to keep it broad in that case?
Yeah, I mean, what we're aiming for is we're working to solve problems. And a lot of these problems are going to pop up within the metaverse. And we think that a lot of the companies that we're incubating are going to help solve those and push the industry forward. I mean, I think being a launchpad, an incubator, we're constantly looking for innovation. And I think those that can innovate and the teams that can execute will be able to do that.
Right. That's a good vision. Let me go. So we've been nice, right, for like 25 minutes. I think it's time to go to the flame grill. For the flame game.
Bring it on.
In terms of, you know, when I look at a launchpad, right? So we're launching our DigitsPad, which is not like a launchpad by itself. It's more like we take allocation from partners, and then like on strategic rounds, et cetera, we basically have a point system. So it's very different than your normal structure. But when I did the math on any launchpad, and we have, you know, we have announced about half a dozen partners, but we have already signed a double dozen. So everybody watching, Herman has a lot of announcements. In general, the business model, I'm curious to see what you have envisioned for Firestarter as the next steps, because the business itself is not as profitable as I would expect it to be from a Launchpad point of view. Are you looking at things like, for example, the incubation where you charge them extra money, or like marketing efforts through like setting up an agency? What is like your vision for this?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So we actually are in the process of just setting up our agency so that we can work with projects that aren't necessarily going to launch on the Firestarter platform, but providing resources, of course. But I think when it comes down to like our Firestarter Launchpad, and I said it before, but it's all about innovating. And I think we're actually, with our tier structure and this, we're calling it a semi-fungible NFT, semi-fungible token. We're going to actually try and innovate on this sort of whole token pre-sale process, casting tokens into NFTs via vesting contracting, allowing future sale of that speculative tokens cast into that NFT to be done through, you know, a normal NFT trade, something like that. So I think it's all about innovating and trying to find the best projects, really, is what it is. At the end of the day, what you're doing is you're selling your resources and your expertise and your community to get this token launched and profitable for everybody. And the better projects you have, the easier that's going to be. So that goes down to, like we mentioned before, our due diligence and sort of our deal flow. Parul, our CEO, has been in the blockchain space for years, and we have investors from Twitch and all these cool tech companies. So not only do the resources that we provide projects super valuable, but the resources we have ourselves, I think, is going to help pushing us along and really finding the best projects at the end of the day.
Right. So you wouldn't necessarily want to push Firestarter into the great beyond, just push like a VC next to it, Launchpad, incubator, marketing, PR agency, just like go full spectrum. You want to dial down more on the Launchpad. Is that the idea?
Yeah, and I think it's about innovating in that space and providing, we're such like a hands-on approach to all of these projects, and no matter what we're going to do with them, it's going to be 360. There's just no way around it. You can't have a marketing campaign go out without, you know, the contracts being set up correctly on the front end and stuff like that. So I think whatever we do, and I think that's the beauty of how we approach it too, is we double down on these incubations and launches and go really deep with them. And we get them to a point where we've de-risked it for our entire community. And we've done our best to really provide something that we think people will get a good investment out of.
Is that the de-risk on the actual project? Because if we pick up some of the remarks, right? So Andrew went into the Firestarter community, and he also went into the Digitsclub just to double verify what's being said about Firestarter. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he only picked up the room for improvement remarks.
Of course.
But I think they're interesting, because when I did my reviews on Decimated, I basically got the same feedback, right? So with the Decimated launch, if I remember that one specifically, there was an issue with the rounds, right? So people got allocated.
Yeah, so
how does that happen?
So I forget, I think the buckets and timing got mixed up. I think user wallets that were supposed to be in guaranteed allocation got mixed up into first come, first serve, and vice versa. That's just startup stuff. Like we're a young company and there's growing pains. And of course you can, you know, sit and pick at all of the hiccups and everything, but there's been quite a few successes along the way as well, especially for a company that's, you know, 10 months old. And actually everybody that participated in the Decimated launch seems to be happy now. We've given them plenty of opportunities to. Yeah,
no, I don't really think it's about that project specifically, or it's about your platform specifically.
Yeah.
It's more like, you know, like if you own up to it, like, okay, that was fucked up. It happened. Basically, it happened because it was one of the first launches. That's what I assume, right? But what would you tell your guys? Because the guys in this chat are almost all at Firestarter already. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm not, and there's a lot of
people. Oh no, yeah.
So what would be like the thing you implemented that to ensure that it would likely not happen again?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened since. And I think at the time that it happened, we did an AMA. We were in front of it. We knew we messed up. And it just goes back to kind of double checking our I's and dotting our T's and all that. So I think it's just a matter of getting better at the whole process, getting better at our platform, getting better at the tech, the go-to-market, marketing. Everything's an improvement. And I think that was actually our third project. And yeah, things have gone a lot smoother. It was actually our first Solana launch as well. The first time we had used Phantom and linking of Phantom wallets to MetaMask. So that would prove to be a bit more difficult than we'd anticipated. But as you can see from Elumia, Solana is all solved.
Perfect. Okay, that makes sense. When it comes down to communication, right? I went into I am at the Firestarter Discord. I'm looking at the icon right now. Andrew is referring back to the tiers. I'm also, that's why I said for real, because 2 weeks ago when you announced the new tiers, I did ask when are the tiers coming because I wanted to shoot a video on it.
Yeah.
How do you basically, because I'm looking at like a bearish sentiment in the market, right? And when I say I mean I speak for Digitsclub, right? So as a club, we review all of these launch pads, and it's like all out panic right now because all the tokens are devaluating, projects are not being, so you filled up 100K raise, which is, I mean, really good because we've seen another launch pad, the last 3 races didn't even fill 30%. That's a nightmare because first they have no projects, now they have projects, but they're not being filled, right? So definitely a huge problem there. Yeah, and I mean, with the new tiers, right? What is the issue? Why is it taking so long? That's basically the question.
It was Solana. We wanted this to be available for our new Solana integration and have it timed correctly for our projects. It doesn't make sense to update our tiers and not have a Solana project or a project that's currently ready to go. And I think that Solana integration took a bit longer than expected. And to be honest, it's because like a lot of our team is from the Ukraine, and the whole situation delayed quite a bit of our tech side. Our CTO, Ivan, he's not there, but he works closely with everybody there.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately delayed things quite a bit. But now we're back, and I think we're
next week we should be good to go.
Yeah, and it's actually worked out great because we half of our team was in Chicago at Solana Labs as well. So we got some more insight from them, and I think the timing actually is better now.
Okay, perfect. When you change the tiers next week, or next week will come the announcement, or will it go into effect immediately?
It's going to be with a project. So they'll be ready. You'll be able to go and do the new staking and everything, but they won't actually, fully be effective until the project's launched.
The next project, that's fair. Yeah. How will the current holders be affected on this change? Will it be, because there must be, as you said, some people will be happy, some people won't be happy.
Yeah, I think the most affected will be basically some of the hero holders. We've reduced some of the guaranteed allocation. They still have guaranteed allocation. It's just not going to be taking up like 50 to 80% that it was before. So in turn, we're actually going to be allowing a lot more people into these rounds while still maintaining a good allocation size. But the hero pool, they'll have their own pool, and they'll actually be able to help out with some of our smaller raises. It'll be directly for hero holders, but they just won't be able to take up almost 80% of the Firestarter allocation.
So what you're saying is their guaranteed allocation on the public pools might go down, but in return, they get private pools, which are only for hero. How is so I see you guys do about one project every 2 to 3 weeks, right? Is that a good estimate?
Yeah, we were pushing them out a lot quicker when the market sentiment's better. Our pipeline is like, we're, I think, 20 projects deep right now, 30 projects deep. And it's just a matter of finding something that works for the market right now.
Right.
Previously, we were able to push out, I think, almost a project a week we were aiming for. We were going to start doing, 2 projects a week, and then the whole market came down. So really, it's actually a reflection of the market, how many projects we're going to push out. Because, I mean, we can push out, 10 projects tomorrow, but how effective they're going to be in today's marketplace isn't going to be reflective of their actual value. So it's all about timing those things correctly.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
Yeah.
The hero pool relative towards the regular pool, how would you say the distribution is like? Are they getting like 25% of the projects, or like a 4-to-1 ratio, or is it like once in a blue moon kind of thing?
No. They'll I think it's around 10 to 15 was it last time I saw the entire round allocation. And that's down from almost 80% of their guaranteed allocation that they were taking up in our guaranteed round, which is great. And that's the value of the NFT. But when it comes to building value back into the token itself, that's where we need to push our efforts. And
how do you mean that when you say we
because
need to push value, how does that work?
Because people were participating in our general allocation rounds without holding any flame. They could just hold a hero NFT, come get, not have to worry, not do the lottery, all of that. And at the end of the day, they don't even hold any flame. So what
do you think about launchpads like Engine Starter, which is I'm not supposed to call out any companies, but I always do.
No.
Well, I already said the name right now, so fuck it. But yeah, that company, which I just said, they're locking their tokens on the new staking for 5 years. What do you think about that? Or like 3 years, something like this. Any ridiculously long time.
I get it. I see why they're doing it. I don't know how strong their current community is to want to get on board with that. I think having that as an option is great, but I think there needs to be other options too, depending on your risk tolerance. I know for one that I don't think I would lock tokens up for 3 years on Engine Starter. I might do it for a project here or there, but for a 3-year commitment to them, I don't think that's necessarily what I would do. But
I mean, like they want to solve a problem. They want to solve the oversupply and no demand, right? So they're removing the supply by locking these tokens.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. Yeah.
In like 3 years' time, they need to pay APY in their own token. So they're just postponing the problem. They just have 3 years to fix it. But the problem will snowball at the end of the day because most of the people will not participate in that pool anyway. I mean, like all around when I see these things, and you haven't shown your tiers yet or your new staking pools, so you might still want to reconsider. But when I see these things,
by design,
yeah. I just have a look and I'm just like, man, what? Like, I know that, like you said, 95% of the investors will not understand what they're trying to do. This is like, oh, high APY, I will just lock my tokens, right? But from a business point of view, you can just tell they're on a scale of non-desperate to desperate, they're here, right? They're beyond desperate. Otherwise, you wouldn't do like 5-year locks, 3-year locks, because that's like a smart contract commitment of 3 years. You don't know what's going to happen, like even in 6 months in the crypto space. It's absolutely mad. But anyway, let's forget about them. I want to talk about the Flame Ignite event. Could you tell us about these flames? You mentioned there were 10,000. They were free. They ignite. Some of them ignited into the Hero NFT, which I think right now is about 4 Ethereum. It was in the Bullrun about 8 Ethereum. So that's a lot of value. They give guaranteed allocation. I did a video on these NFTs, but I already forgot about it. I'm sorry. But they are more avatars will be released.
Yeah. So it's kind of this whole Firestarter Metaverse champions is what we call them. And these are basically NFTs that you can use on our platform for added benefits. So Hero, which is our rarest NFT, gives you that added benefit of guaranteed allocation. Now, during these ignition events, our first one was the launch of Firestarter. That was actually a play to get everybody to come to our platform. We released these 10,000 free NFTs. You could claim it through one of our partners called LinkDrop. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but a really easy onboarding process for claiming an NFT, setting up a wallet, getting an email. So we used this to kind of gain our first sort of customers. And then we had an ignition event, and then the ignition event took place on our token launch. So we had a lot of hype going up to this, leading up to it. And what they could do is they could take their flare, come to our website, and they could try and ignite this flare. And if they won, they would get a Hero NFT. And if they didn't, they could just keep the flare and use it next time for our next champion. So these champions are going to be coming out throughout the year. It's not necessarily a huge focus to push out the champions before we have our final tier set up. But when that does happen, there'll be all these really cool additional utilities for our next diamond. The main of which will be whitelisting and some of these NFT platforms that we're going to be a part of. So yeah, there's a lot of. What was that?
Like our DigitsPad, maybe.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
So the next one is called Diamond Champion, or is it just called Diamond, or? Just
Diamond. And it's actually funny enough, named after one of our first projects, Nicky Diamonds, his Diamond Crypto Dunks.
What is on your
which
t-shirt? Because it looks like a shoebox.
It's funny. It is. That's exactly what it is.
Oh, it
it's
is
an
a
NFT
shoebox.
that Nicky Diamonds did from Diamond Supply Company, big skateboarding brand, one of our incubated projects.
That makes sense because I've never skateboarded in my life.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, he recently got into NFTs, in which we helped launch. So we did this cool thing at ComplexCon and everything. But it's named after his company, Diamond. He's one of our investors.
So it's Hero, Diamond, and then the Hero gives guaranteed allocation. The Diamond gives whitelist through potential partner marketplaces, etc. And then you have
there's a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, and those are going to be probably released towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. Trying to do this like every 6 months or quarterly, just because every time we do.
Yet or no?
They're kind of getting fleshed out. But they will make their full official appearance soon. It's really funny. We have like these, it's actually been really cool in terms of like our community and just involvement with other projects, because we can actually put our NFTs in these metaverse environments now. So for blocks, Hero is going to go in the blocks environment. You can run around with Hero in there, and it's really cool for both marketing and in terms of the utility. So I think as an NFT, it really goes, shows value, and it's cool. It's like, what more could you want from an NFT?
Yeah, makes sense. In terms of the actual flame power, right? Because I see people referring back to the flame power over and over again. Not really over and over again. There's 2 questions on it only, but obviously now with the restructuring of the tiers, I don't know if you can say anything about it. Is that still as relevant, the flame power? Or,
yeah, absolutely. Flame power will still contribute to, your tier and your allocation amount. Diamond will, of course, have flame power, not as high as Hero, of course. Hero is our champion of champions. But yeah, all of that information will be coming out too with the release of Diamond, and specifically the flame power.
There's like 2 big milestones, right? Next week, you got the new tiers with the Solana integration. That's kind of a big deal. And then the Diamond NFTs would be huge as well. What are other things you're looking forward to that are going to happen this year? Because we have like 7 months left. What do you think would be the biggest things for Firestarter?
Our semi-fungible token model that I sort of touched on previously, I think is going to innovate the way in which people distribute tokens, the way in which people participate in pre-sales. This lottery system and the first come first serve and all of this kind of stuff is great, and it works for the time being, but I think there's an opportunity there to solve some problems and some challenges that people face throughout that process. And I think it's really cool what NFTs can actually do, not just art, right? So by us kind of coming up with this and developing this semi-fungible token model, we can combine the two, and we can actually have, vesting contracts being controlled by NFTs and that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting. And I think once we release that, it's going to be a major milestone, and it's going to do a lot in terms of the landscape of launchpads, I think.
Would you put it on a marketplace, like create a Firestarter marketplace for this? Yeah. Man, I spoke with one of Solidity Dev about the exact same thing. Connect vesting to NFTs, and then if you want to build a marketplace together, hit me up.
Hey man, it's almost done. It's almost done. But that's not to say we don't have partners. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. I have a good question again here. So they actually want you to critique our setup because it's quite different. So let's have a look. We don't have a token for our DigitsPad. How it works is people can stack NFTs, right? So you can join as of one NFT. You stake your NFT and you generate 1 point per day, right? Cool. Then we open up the pool for any project that we have. So we don't scout projects ourselves. We would basically, let's say one of our partners like Unix has a project and they want to split the allocation with us. And we talk with the project and everything as well, right? So basically we do the marketing both ways. So they do 100K, we do 100K. Then people can assign points to get allocation, but we don't have our own token involved there. What do you think the biggest problem with this model could be?
Man, I think I might need to dig a little deeper into the actual model.
Because there's only pros.
Right. I like that. No, I think one thing that we've come across and something that is always a point of pain is the like legal stance on all of this, the gray area that NFTs operate as securities and tokens operate as utilities and all this kind of stuff.
So basically the NFTs are being staked and that's on chain. And then the points are off chain and the points are attached to an account. So it's not a security because it's a reward. So that's why we do the points in between. So it's not on the smart contract.
Yeah, got it. I like that. No, I mean, okay. Yeah, that was my next question, was if there's going to be a KYC. And if there's no KYC, that's awesome. That would be
because with the points, you're not getting actually something tangible. They're just digital points. And we also, so the smart contract is not owned by the company, right? Because it's like Web3, but the points are owned by the company. So we can change the points if we want to. We can remove all your points if we want to. And when you create your account, it's just a wallet. But for every round you participate in, you need to accept the privacy policy because we basically control your points.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that red flags there is the transparency, you know, like we get accused of all the time of like manipulating our rounds or whatever. And we're like, no, just go look on the blockchain. We use VRF randomizer.
Right.
As long as you're like transparent about all that stuff and there's no fuckery going on,
there will be a lot of fuckery.
Right? That's what they all say. Yeah. No,
I think the main thing is we obviously run a private community, right? That's also a huge difference. That it's not like it's not like publicly people can join. If you would buy an NFT, these NFTs are expensive, right? Relatively. And I'm just saying that because I think that's true. At the current moment, they are extremely affordable, right? I think they're $600 a pop. Some guy just bought like 14 yesterday evening. But they buy them from OpenSea, right? They're already in circulation.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't buy one without asking around in the Digitsclub, like, hey, what are you guys doing? How does it work?
Like, what is this thing?
So yeah, fair. Andrew, I hope that answers your question. Everybody's mad bullish on the pad, but we still need to wait about 6 weeks. When we focus more on your project, right? The token, because I like, apart from the Launchpad, it makes sense, right? I like what you guys are doing. I see you guys. What I like and what I don't see enough is people owning up to their mistakes, right? I think it's normal. Like you said, it's a startup. We fuck shit up. We fix it. It's crypto. It goes so fast. It's all new, right? And then we see, not going to name any companies, but we see so many launchpads that just make mistake after mistake. And they're just like, oh, like nothing happened. It's the tag and it's this, it's a smart contract. But if you make so many mistakes in a row, what do you expect investors to do? They're going to dump your token. And it's already devaluating because of the sentiment, right? So when you are talking about the price of your token, I think it's 100% a linear downward trend as the entire market, right? It just follows the market sentiment. You might launch less project, which is also not helpful, but that's like a launchpad business model problem. Let's say the bull run returns. I think you would be good, right? There's no more problems. Let's say the bull run doesn't return for another 8 months. What do you think would be like a good strategy for the token in that case?
Well, luckily our treasury is to the point where we can last for a while. So we've already raised enough to get us through whatever sorts of hardships we had expected in the first few years. But I think in times like this, it's all about just building. And luckily for us, we have like an in-house engineering team. We have a CTO. We're not, using any shops across seas or anything like that. So when something goes wrong, we can actually fix it right away. A lot of times something goes wrong and you see like, oh, my guys are 12 hours ahead and and
right.
I'm gonna have to pay them another $100,000 to let me edit the code that they made for me. So a lot of that stuff is taken care of in-house, but I think during these times, it's all about building in terms of your tech, your platform, your marketing.
Would you tell your investors just to be patient in this case?
I would say, if you can make money elsewhere in the crypto market, in a bear market, then go for it. But I think in terms of, if you want to make money with us and you're confident in our ability to do that, then you're not going to get a better launchpad than Firestarter. Our investors, of course, they want a quick return. but we're clear on everything we do. We're here for the long run. We've made more investments in these projects than, a lot of other
And I mean,
entities.
Elumia did really well today. So at
Yeah,
least
and it's done great.
congratulations
Yeah.
on that one, because that was, it was a surprise. I mean, like I reviewed the project when it was announced, not even for Firestarter, but like way back. Like I think it was like 2.5 months ago. I liked it. I like the general MMORPG element, right? Because there's
It
so
makes
many
the
shit
most sense.
games.
It makes the
Yeah,
most
it's
sense
just
for
like,
Web3.
and then I think like 2 weeks ago, it was the FUD wave, right? Like, oh, these guys, they built a project, they neglected it. But I mean, like, yeah, it's a fucking gaming company. Of course, they launch like 4 or 5 MMORPGs. They use the base code, and they build upon it with a new story. And one of them will suck, and they will ditch it, right, along the way, because it's business. It's not like these guys dedicate, because we do see that as well, that people dedicate 5 years of their life to one game. But then again, what if it doesn't work? What if it does? It's great, right?
Yeah.
But this is more like a business thing. And I don't, when I see Legends of Elumnia, I would see like a runway of like 2 to 3 years before such a game dies, right? It's like normal, and people shouldn't expect these things to live forever. But I was very excited to see the launch. I followed the launch live. Basically for seed, amazing, right? Everybody got some TGE. And then for even for the IDO round, like a 3x stable, right?
I
It went
think
up to
that
like 5.
max 5, I think it hit 20.
Yeah, but we don't talk about the all-time highs, because
We do. I'm a marketing guy. What can you say?
If you're able to sell at the all-time high, that's only for me, right? I'm the guy on the dots. Like lately, we've been doing really well, or at least the ones that I participate in. It's like, it's all in the small trick. So I switch off the Wi-Fi. I go on airplane mode on my phone on 4G.
Okay.
It's like a tad bit quicker.
The 4G is quicker than the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and we have some like hacker dudes or whatever they call it, but they basically approve the token beforehand on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how it works, but that's why we have such a great community, because people are willing to teach each other how it works.
That's so cool. Yeah.
And it's like 2 seconds, right? Maybe it's 1.5 seconds, but those 1.5 seconds, you're just faster. On that first red candle, we've all seen it, right? It's like huge. And if you can catch that one, or at least before it, then yeah, you might make a lot more money there. But yeah, the main strategy, I think, is still getting your initial back on the actual TGE. That would be great. That would be the focus.
If you can do that, I think it's a great investment. Yeah.
Yeah, you at least de-risk it, right? And maybe perhaps my last question, which I wanted to ask before, but when you talk about de-risking stuff, have you guys ever thought about an insurance fund, something like that, where you basically charge the user 2%, 5% fee on the IDOs, or usually they charge it on private, but let's say on the public pools. So whenever a company either, mixes up the token, wormhole, bridge, any fuckery after the TGE, or a plain rug, right? Because it might happen. You dox them, you do whatever you can, but there will be 1 in 1,000 that just fucks everybody over. Have you ever thought about something like this?
Yeah, so we actually have something more, not necessarily on the user end, but recently we've had a few projects change their vesting terms post TGE, and that's just can't fly with us. So we've actually gotten out ahead of that, and now it's contractually obligated to the vesting terms and all that. We're making auditing and everything. Sorry, what was the last point?
It was about the insurance.
De-risking the insurance, yeah.
Yeah.
It's something we've talked about. I don't know if it's something we've actually thought about and implemented or scoped out necessarily, but yeah, we've definitely talked about insurance, and some of our NFT auction formats. We've explored sort of Dutch auction style, refunding them if it goes below what they bought it for. So there's definitely some things that we've researched, but I think
it's always like a slippery slope that way, like
yeah, and then it's like, how do you determine if a project's failed? If it's just like, it gets really complicated and maybe drops below a certain price, but then there's so many macroeconomic factors that affect that like,
yeah, you can manipulate the liquidity, all kinds of things that the regular folk might not know about to pump and dump the price, or at least move the chart when the circulating supply is small. Yeah, it's risky, but I always like to ask that question, because the views differ very, very much. Like, I feel like you really take responsibility for your pad, Other launchpads, they refer the responsibility to the user, right? Just put it on like do your own research.
Well,
kind of
it's
thing,
the whole
or...
DAO argument, right? It's like, we're a DAO. We don't have to take any responsibility. We're all user owned. We're all community owned. We don't have to say anything here, but at the end of the day, it's like, no, we're still a company, and we're going to be successful, and we're a startup, and we're going to own our fuck ups, right? And it's going to happen. And if you're here and you believe in us this early on, then just wait a couple of years down the road.
Well, I mean, like, if you are transparent as you are, as am I, right, to my own community, like we have made a tremendous growth in the last 4 months, and we have owed up to any mistake, because there have been many, right? And we have a huge amount of supporters. And I don't think you don't have to have a launchpad or any community with 100,000 people in it, right? As long as you have 1,000, maybe even 100 dedicated people that support you along the way, then you need to just treat them like royalty as they treat you with their money,
exactly,
right? With their business. That's exactly a perfect ending statement. We're so zen. We're so in sync. Zach,
I love it. Thank you guys.
I really appreciate you being here. I hope we can have a chat some other time again, because I really enjoyed this. You're a very smart guy, very transparent. I always appreciate that. Anything else you would like to say?
I think that's it. Check out Firestarter, buy some flame, keep an eye on our projects, and please reach out if you guys have any projects you're working on. If you have anything you think it should be on our radar, we're always looking for cool stuff. So my line's open.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shaq. Shout out to Outrage. Thank you for setting up this opportunity for us, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you.